So one of the biggest decisions you are going to need to make about your course design is it going to be asynchronous, synchronous, or blended? Now, I actually hate a lot of the phrasing and terminology in this industry, including those three words. I don't think they provide much clarity at all. So let me explain just in case that's not clear. So asynchronous content, that basically means content that a student can take at their wish, when they want to, when it fits them, when it suits them. So for example, a pre-recorded video or an online test that they can log in and take anytime, that would be asynchronous content on asynchronous course. By contrast, a synchronous course is, and you've probably guessed, effectively a live event where everybody is attending at the same time. Now you could be in theory playing a pre-recorded video, which is where it all gets a little bit confusing, but if those students are logging in or absorbing that content at the same time, like pupils or children in a classroom, that's synchronous content because they're all there at the same time, listening to the same content at the same time, right? That's synchronous content. And you've probably now guessed what the third one is. Blended is a mixture of the two. And for what it's worth, for a course of the very highest quality, you really should be aiming for a blended course. Now, that's not necessarily easy to create, but if you really are looking for absolute high quality, then a blended course is the way to go, where students have the sort of camaraderie and some of the energy that comes from a group event, as well as having content that they can take in their own time that fits them, fits their specific needs, that maybe fits in with their diary, but maybe also fits in with their learning needs. So let's take a little look at those three different types of course types so that you can decide what is right for you. So let's start off with asynchronous course content or an asynchronous course. That is, as a reminder, content where a student can take it at any time they wish. Now, of course, that is of huge benefit to your students. That means it can fit around their lifestyle, around their work commitments, family commitments, social commitments, and all the other things that life throws at them. And that's, of course, very desirable and attractive quality to a student to have that flexibility. They can take those lessons when they choose to. At the same time, however, that flexibility can easily create a situation where they're not in a rhythm, they're not in a good routine and a good schedule with it, and they might take the first few lessons and quickly drop off the course. So that is something that you will need to bear in mind when you are deciding. From a course creation perspective, there can be some attractive qualities in the ability to re-record content, do it again and again if you need to until you get it just right, until you are happy with it, before you then capture it and place that onto your platform for your students to see. So from a course creation perspective, you might find some comfort, and that might be an attractive quality. And again, that's something you will need to consider when you're making your decision. A synchronous course can be both better and also sometimes worse than an asynchronous course. If you have a large group of people that turn up, then you can get a huge amount of energy from that, and that can transform your lesson, your course, into a much more engaging and much more useful content. And your students will love and participate that in a way that perhaps a asynchronous course is unable to deliver. The downside is if you don't get a large group of people there, then instead of having lots of energy, you can actually have the absolute opposite effect, and the room can feel empty and it lacks that energy. And I would argue that can actually be worse than having an asynchronous piece of pre-recorded content. You'd have all the downsides, so that people got to turn up at a specific time, with none of the benefit. If you do decide to create a synchronous course where people come together at the same time, then take advantage of that. Make sure you've got engaging content, that you're asking them to actually participate. Maybe they're answering questions or delivering content or making some performance, or you're giving them tasks live during that event. Otherwise, you're not really going to be benefiting from it. So that's something for you to consider when you're making your decision. And with a blended course, you perhaps arguably have the best of both worlds. You can rehearse and redo and re-record important segments that you want to get just right and then deliver that asynchronously so students can take that in their own time. But you have the occasional live event, maybe that's a group webinar or some other element of the content where people come together. Maybe they talk about their progress, or you're given a specific kind of performance or a specific lesson, and you get that energy at least for some of those lessons. So as I mentioned earlier, blended is often considered the best solution where possible. So you now need to decide, is your course going to be synchronous, asynchronous, or blended? Over to you to decide.